Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. It's a sad time on Reading with Stonesy, for it is the final episode of the Island of the Blue Dolphins, where we will be finishing off this book once and for all, reading the final two chapters of the story. Today we will be reading chapters 28 to 29, pages 164 to 174, so this should be relatively short, of course, except for the dog section, but that's the part everyone loves. Everyone loves. But, yeah. So, without further ado, let's begin. Chapter 28. The earth did little damage. Even the spring, which failed to flow for several days, started up again and flowed more than ever. But the great waves had cost me all the food and weapons which were stored in the cave, as well as the canoe I'd been working on and thus hidden under the south cliffs. The canoes were the biggest loss. To find enough wood to make another would have taken me all spring and summer. I therefore set out the first fair morning and to search for whatever wreckage in the waves had washed ashore. Among the rocks near the south cliffs I found one part of the canoe, buried in the sand and twisted with kelp. I worked all morning to dig it free and then even scraped it clean. Could not decide what to do. I would cut the sinews and carry the planks up the cliff, two at a time, and on my back and across the dunes to the coral cove, which meant many days. Or I could build this canoe here in the rocks and take advantage that other storm would wash it away before I'd finish. Finally, neither of these things. Choosing a day when the sea was calm, I floated. I was left of the canoe, and pushing it in front of me, made my way past the sandpit and into the cove, where I took the wreckage apart and moved the planks up the trail, beyond the place where the great waves had reached. I found the remains of my other canoe, which had been washed far back in the cave. I could not get it out. So I went back to the south cliffs and hunted among the piles of kelp. I had enough pieces of wood, counting that I already had, to begin the building of another. It was late in the spring now. The weather was still unsettled, with a light rain falling most days, and I started the new canoe anyway, for needed to gather shellfish. No longer did I think of the alutes I have said, yet without canoe to get where I wanted, I felt uneasy. The planks were all about the same size, the length of my arm, but they came in different canoes, were far hard to fit together. The holes were ready, however, which saved me much labor and time. Another help was the great waves that washed ashore the long strings of black pitch, which are often difficult to find on the island, which I needed. When I had sorted out the planks and shaped them and went fast, though that my late spring I was ready to finish what seems to be the winding morning, and I made a fire to soften the pitch. The wind was cold and it took a long time to get the fire going. To hasten it, I went down to the beach for dry seaweed. I stared at back with my arms filled, and I turned to look at the sky, thinking of the feel of the wind that a storm might be close. Off in the north the skies were clear, but in the east, from whence the storms sometimes came at the season, stood banks of great clouds, one on top of the other. At this moment, in the deep shadows cast by the clouds, I saw something else. Forgetting that I was carrying a load of seaweed, I threw up my arms, and the seaweed fell to the ground. A ship, I was there on the sea, halfway between the horizon and the shore. By the time I'd reached the headland, it was much closer, moving quickly along the wind. I could see that it would not have any red, beaked prow of the alutes, nor did it look like the white man's ship, which I clearly remembered. Why did it had come to the island of the Blue Dolphins? I crouched on the headland and wondered, my heart beating fast, if the men who'd sailed it had come to catch otter. If they were hunters, I must hide before they saw me. As soon I'd find my fire in the canoe I was making, yet I could go to the cave and probably be safe from them. If they had been sent by my people to take me away, then I should not hide. The ship moved slowly between the black rocks and into the coral cave. I could see the men now, and they were not alutes. They lowered the canoe, and two men paddled toward the beach. The wind had begun to blow hard, and the men had trouble landing. Finally, one of them stayed behind the canoe, and the other, the man with the beard, jumped into the water and came along the beach and up the trail. I could not see him, but after a while I heard a shout, then another, and knew he had found my fire in the canoe. The man who had left the cove did not answer, nor did the man on the ship, so I was sure that he was calling to me. I crawled down the rock and went to the house. Since my shoulders were bare, I put on an otter cape. I took my cormorant skirt and the alpaca box in which I kept my necklace and earrings, with onto Aru I went along the trail and led to Coral Cove. I came to the mound where my ancestor had sometimes camped in the summer. I thought of them and the happy time spent in my house in the headland of a canoe lying unfinished beside the trail. I thought of many things, but stronger was the wish that people lived to hear their voices and hear their laughter. I left the mound of green paths growing and among the white shelves, and I could no longer hear the man calling, so I began to run. I came to the place where two trails met, and I built my fire. I found footsteps of the man had left. I followed them down to the cove. The canoe had gone back to the ship. The wind was screaming now, and the mist grew across the harbor. Waves had been piled up on the shore. I raised my hand and shouted, I shouted over and over, but the wind carried my voice away. I ran down the beach and waded into the water. The man did not see me. The rain started to fall, and the wind drove it against my face. I waddled further out through the waves, raising my arms to the ship. Slowly, it moved away in the mist. I went toward the south. I stood there until I was out of sight. Chapter 29. After 2 more springs had gone and a morning of the white clouds and calm seas, the ship came back. At dawn, I saw it from the headland far at the horizon, and the sun was overhead. I lay anchored in a coral cove. Until the sun went down, I watched from the headland until the men came to the camp ashore and built a fire. And I went to my house. All night I did not sleep, thinking of the man who once called to me. I thought of his voice, gone for a long time, since the night of the storm when the ship had sailed away. Every day during the 2 springs and 2 summers I had gone to the headland and watched, always at dawn and again at dusk. In the morning I smelled smoke from their fire. I went down the ravine and bathed in the spring and put on my outer cape and a cormorant skirt. I put on the necklace of black stones and black earrings. With blue clay I had made the mark of our tribe across my nose. When I did something that made me smile at myself, I did what my older sister Lape had done when she left the island of the Blue Dolphins. Below the mark of our tribe I carefully put a sign which meant I was still unmarried. I was no longer a girl, yet I made it anyway, using blue clay and some white clay for the dots. I went back to the house and built a fire and cooked food for Rontu Aru and me. I was not hungry, and he ate my food and his too. We are going away, I said to him, away from our island. But he only had his head on one side, and his father often had done. And when I said no more, he trotted out of the sunny place and lay down and fell asleep. Now that the white man had come back, I could not think of what I would do when I crossed the sea, nor take a picture in my mind of the white man and what they did here, and see my people who had gone so long, not thinking of the past and many summers and winters and springs had gone, could I see each of them. They were all one, a tight feeling in my breast and nothing more. The morning with fell a sun, the wind smelled of sea and things that lived in it. I saw men long before the house of the headland, far off the dunes of the south. There were 3 of them, 2 tall men and one who was short and wore a long gray robe. They left the dunes and came along the cliff, and seeing the smoke from the fire, which I kept burning, they followed it, and at least reached my house. I crawled under the fence and stood facing them. The man in gray robe had a string of beads around his neck, and at the end of the ornament was polished wood. He raised his hand and made a motion toward me, which was the shape of an ornament he wore. Then the 2 men stood behind him and spoke to me. His words made the strangest sounds I have ever heard. At first I wanted to laugh, but I bit my tongue. I shook my head and smiled at him. He spoke again, slowly this time, though his words sounded the same as before and meant nothing to me. They now seemed sweet. They were the sound of a human voice. There was no sound like this in all the world. The man lifted his hand and pointed towards the cove and made a picture in the air that could have been a ship. To this I nodded myself and pointed to 3 baskets I placed by the fire, making a gesture of taking them with me in the ship. I also the cage in which I had put 2 young birds. There were many gestures before we left, though the men spoke among themselves. They liked my necklace, the cape, and the cormorant skirt, and shone in the sun. But when we got to the beach, their camp was the first thing the man who spoke most did was tell the other men to make me a dress. I knew this was what he said because one of them stood in front of me and held up the string to my neck to my feet and across my shoulders. The dress was blue, which made of 2 trousers, dressed like the woes of the white men were carrying. The trousers were cut up into pieces, and then one of the men sat down on the rock and put them together again with white string. He had a long nose, which looked like a needle he used. As he sat all afternoon on the rock, and needle went back and forth and in and out, flashing in the sun. From time to time he would hold up the dress and nod his head as if he were pleased. I nodded as if I were pleased too, but I was not. I wanted to wear my cormorant skirt and my otter cape, which were much more beautiful than the thing he was making. The dress reached from my throat to my feet. I did not like it, either the color of it and the way it scratched. It was also hot, but I smiled and put my cormorant skirt away in one of the baskets to wear when I got across the sea, sometime when the men were not around. The ship stayed in Coral Cove 9 days and did not come for Otter, but the otter had gone. Some must have left, and after all, who remembered the Aleuts, for on that morning there was none to be seen. I knew they had gone, and they had gone to Tall Rock, but when the men showed me the weapons they had brought to kill the otter, I shook my head and acted as though I did not understand. They pointed at my otter cape, but I still shook my head. I asked them about the ship when I had taken my people away many years before, making signs of the ship and pointing to the east. They did not understand, not until I came to the mission Santa Barbara and met Father Gonzalez. I learned from him that the ship had sunk in a great storm soon after it reached the country, and that on a whole ocean thereabouts was no other. For this reason, the white man did not come back for me. On the 10th day we sailed, and the morning of blue skies and no wind. We went straight toward the sun, and after a long time I stood in front, looked back on the island of the Blue Dolphins. The last thing I saw of it was the high headland. I thought of Rontu lying there beneath the stones of many colors, and Wanda-E, wherever she was, and the little red fox that would scratch in vain at my fence, and my canoe hidden in the cave, and all of the happy days. Dolphins rose out of the sea and swam for the ship. They swam for many leagues in the morning, through the bright water, breathing with their foamy patterns. Their little birds were chirping in the cage, and Rontu Aru sat beside me. and that is The Island of the Blue Dolphins. A fantastic read. It felt nice to read this again. I read this in total of 3 days, which is faster than the average audiobook I do, but I read it so fast because I really enjoy making audiobooks, first of all, and second of all, I really enjoyed The Island of the Blue Dolphins as a story, as a collective, thing, and I wanted, instead of going for another story like Minecraft or Five Nights at Freddy's, I wanted to go for a story that was more educational than anything else, because I had to learn this in school. So, and I have a few books that I want to read in the future that are more educational as well. But that is for a different day. Because today we read chapters 28 to 29, pages 164 to 174, and next time we will be reading a different book that I have still not chosen yet. We were supposed to be reading Olivia this time around, but I decided to keep it kid-friendly for a little bit, and then later on we'll go more to the adult books, just to get me back in shape of the books. Maybe next time we'll read more of an adult book, maybe not. Those FNAF books are more adult anyway, so maybe we'll read that instead. The bookmark now has a second section, and yeah, so that's always good. And I'll be able to mark that when I'm done drawing it, because it's not done drawing yet, of course, until the book was over. But yeah, no more sadness, no more, sadness of what has happened and what has transpired through the story, because now it is time for Stonseys Learning Corner, or my favorite part of the video. I'm kidding, of course. I love audiobooks. Today, we are learning about the Irish setter. The Irish setter. It's like the other setters. It's the last setter that we will be learning about in this section of the story. And, well, it's skinnier than the most. It's a skinny dog, and it looks a lot like that one girl celebrity dog from Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2. Now, of course, I shouldn't be making fun or mimic anything, because you can't make fun or mimic something without knowing the history of it. So, the history of the Irish setter is that the precise origins of the Irish setters are obscure, but most reasonable theories consider that it resulted from a blend of spaniels, pointers, and other setters, mostly the English, but, to a lesser extent, the Gordon. Irish hunters needed a fast-working, keen-nosed dogs, large enough to be seen from the distance. They found their dog in the red and white setters produced from these crosses. The first kennels of solid red setters appeared around 1800. Only a few years these dogs had gained the reputation of their rich mahogany color. By the mid-1800s, Irish red setters, as they were originally known, had come to America, proving themselves as effective in American game birds as Irish ones. Needed fast-working, keen-nosed dogs, large enough to be seen from a distance. They found their dog in the red and white setters produced from these crosses. The first kennels of the solid red setters appeared around 1800. Only a few years these dogs had gained the reputation of the rich mahogany color. By the mid-1800s, the Irish red setters, as they were originally known, had come to America, proving themselves as effective on American game birds as Irish ones. Back in Ireland around 1862, the dog was forever changed the breed. Champion Palmerston was born, which had an unusually long head and slender build. He was considered to be too refined for the field, so his owner ordered him drowned. Another fancier interceded, and the dog became a sensation as a show dog, going on to sire an incredible number of offspring. Virtually every modern Irish setter can be tracked in the Palmerston. Interest changed from the field trials into dog shows. An emphasis changed from hunting daily to glamour. Despite this, the Irish setter became a capable hunter, and decided breeders took steps to retain the breed's dual abilities. The breed increased principally in the popularity of the show dog. However, later as a pet, it eventually rose to a place among the most popular breeds in America in the 1970s, but since plummeted in the rankings. How interesting. A dog that has no past, was a hunter, and became glamorous. Glamorous. Yeah. Glamorous. Now, do you want one of these glamorous, oh so glamorous, yeah, dogs for yourself? Well, then you gotta know the temperament of them before you know it. Are they gonna bite my kid? Are they gonna show off all the money that they own and all the cool and expensive cars they have? Well, the temperament of the Irish setter is that the Irish setter was bred to be the tireless and enthusiastic hunter and approaches everything in life with rollicking, good-natured attitude. Full of gusto and fervor, given the daily outlet for its energy, it makes it a pleasant companion. Without ample exercise, can be overly active inside and become frustrated. It's an amiable breed, rather eager to please when to be part of his family's activities. It is good with children, but can be too rambunctious for small children. It is less popular as a hunter than the other setters. So it's a calmer breed, but still is a hunter at the end of the day. So they're not going to show off their money. They're just going to relax and show off their energy more than anything. Now, for the upkeep of these dogs. What do I have to do to keep this dog the beautiful and fine dog that it is? Well, the upkeep of the Irish setter is that the Irish needs exercise, and lots of it. It is not fair to take the dog selected for boundless energy and expect it to sit inside. A minimum of 1 hour of hard, strenuous games and exertion a day is recommended. Because of its energy, it's not suited as an apartment dog. It can live outside in temperate or warm weather, but it needs warm shelter and needs to come inside in colder weather. It is a sociable dog that it does not best living with his family. The coat needs regular brushing and combing every 2 to 3 days, plus some clipping and trimming to look its best. Now, this dog is more work than it is action, so you might need to keep an eye out for that. Now, for any children in the room or any students or whatever, please cover your ears now, as we are getting to the health section. Any adults or teenagers, start writing notes because this stuff is important. For the health of the Irish setter, the major concerns you have to look for are the PRA, CHD, and the gastric torsion, stomach problems, eyes problems, leg problems. Minor concerns are the megaesophagus, panisotasis, HOD, osteochroma, and hyperthyroidism. So, again, keep an eye on the thigh. It's a minor concern, but still a concern all the same. It's occasionally seen with OCD, epilepsy, hemophilia A. I don't know what hemophilia A is, but OCD and epilepsy are pretty common place for Irish setters, or at least epilepsy is. Suggested tests are the eye, DNA, or PRA, hip, cardiac, and thyroid, so they could get some type of blood disease, so keep an eye on that. Their lifespan is 12 to 14 years, and there's even a special note. This is actually new. The note states, with the advent of DNA testing for PRA, this problem should no longer be a concern if both parents have been tested. So, if you are breeding these dogs and both animals have been tested, there will not be any upgrades or any modification of the DNA. As long as both parents are fine breeded and they've both been tested, this dog will be tested the same exact way too. There's not going to be any evolutions of this said DNA disease. Finally, before we get to the last part of this episode, is the form and function of the Irish setter. Now, among the most breathtaking of dogs, the Irish setter's beauty is part of the result of necessity. Its elegant yet substantial build enables it to hunt with speed and stamina. Its build is slightly longer than tail, giving ample room for movement without interference between fore and hind legs. The trot of ground covering and efficient. The coat is flat, straight, and moderate length, with longer feathering on ears, back of legs, belly, chest, tail, and providing protection from briars without becoming entangled in them. The rich mahogany color is just beautiful. As beautiful as a dog is, there's always certain problems with him, which is always sad. But now we'll have to put that to the test, because we are at the final section of today's reading, the at a glance section. Now, for a quick speed run of this, 5 means it's the best of the best. 4 means it's better than average. 3 means it's average. 2 means it's below average. And 1 means it is worse than average. Now, for this quick reading, the energy level, exercise requirements, playfulness, and affection level are at a 5. These are all great except for the exercise requirements, which you're going to need to do a lot. Like I said, an hour straight of strenuous work, running and doing all those things, no breaks. It's a lot of work on a dog parent, so watch out for that. Friendliness towards dogs and friendliness towards other pets is at a 4. So, yeah, you need to keep an eye out on that. Because they are very nice to other pets and dogs. So, that could be good when it comes to, just dogs in general, but it could be bad when it comes to a chinchilla or a snake. So watch out for that. Friendliness towards strangers is at a 5 as well. So it could be best friends with your brother, or it could be best friends with a robber, which is bad, but it can also be good, depending on how the ease of training is. The ease of training is a 3, so normal. So give them love, they'll trust you. You know? The watchdog ability is at a 4 with a protection ability at 1, which means they can find things really well, but they can't protect anything. There are no teeth in that glamorous dog. It will pay its servants to fight. It doesn't fight itself. Now, the grooming requirements, cold tolerance, and heat tolerance are all at a 3, although I would say the cold tolerance should be at a 2 because, as it said before, these dogs need a warm environment to live in. And finally, the weight of a male should be about 70 pounds, and for a female, about 60 pounds for a good, healthy dog, and the height of the male should be 27 inches, for a female, about 25, which is normal in the animal kingdom. So, with that, that is the end of the setters for right now. The end of the book, the end of the setters. Why does everything have to end so soon? Well, my friends, every end has a beautiful beginning. So, until that beginning comes, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.